Hey guys, welcome back to Anchored and Devoted. I am Pastor Jer, and I'm joined
Pastor
today
Joseph.
by him. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. And yourself?
Are you okay? I'm good, man.
I'm
Are
good.
you okay?
I'm hanging in there. I'm good.
You sure?
I'm sure. What about yourself?
Like I said, I'm good. I'm fine this morning. I slept well last night. I know there's a lot of people who didn't. To wake up this morning with in the second Trump presidency is not what a lot of people wanted. And I know it's something that has been concerning in particular, in particular ways for you. And
just a little bit.
I mean, I'm honestly asking, how you doing?
I'm hanging in. It's real. It's humbling. And I say it's humbling because I know that this is where we are, and and I trust God with it, and it's very uncomfortable, and so it's not a surprise, but at the same time it is. I mean, a few weeks ago it was 48-48, saw the polls, all that kind of stuff, so it wasn't like it was this thing where it was unknown. I do think, I mean, even, I've told you this before, I'm an independent. So I do think for both sides, there was the expectation of winning. And so for me, it's interesting to see the desire for, keeping hope alive by everybody. It's another day. God has us. I did sleep well. Like, that's not an issue. I just still have
Are you putting your house for sale?
A 2.5-year-old. So that hasn't changed. I
mean, besides how you're doing, there's in approaching, knowing that we were going to record, the election was coming and we were going to record.
So
there's a couple questions I've been just thinking about that I wanted to bounce off of you, just to hear where you are. What are your fears? What are your predictions? And what does this change for you in terms of how you walk forward as a man, husband, father, friend, community, neighbor? Whatever. All of it. Any of it.
Okay. So there's no plans to sell the house.
Okay.
That
makes me happy.
Yeah, I don't that is not a...
We are not together in person enough as it is. If you leave the country for some reason, or if I leave the country, that's no good mojo.
No, I'm not gonna lie. If people start protesting and walking around hunting Black people, then I will leave. But there is no plan for leaving. My wife and I have discussed this at length, so that is not on the plan. But like I said, if things get silly, then yeah, we would consider it. But that's not the desire. I was in the military, love this country, and want the best for it. The people have spoken. The scripture is very clear. I'm to pray for my leaders, and that's what I believe in. Been praying for Trump even before he got back in. Didn't know it would be him. Didn't know who it would be. And honestly, I trust God to give him space to do his work. I don't know what he's going to do. So that, that's part of why we're not fleeing or running or anything like that.
Right.
It's, I believe God to be God. And I'm not saying that I need to be comfortable. I do believe that I have a unique voice to use now, especially in this season, because he's the president, just to be honest.
How do you mean? Can you unpack that for me a little?
Yeah, I think the African American church has a unique space to lean into under, and this isn't to put down Donald Trump, but I think the Black church has a unique voice when you have a president who has said a number of racist things, and has been unapologetic about his lack of faith. I do believe there is a desire by some African Americans to be hopeful that he will change, and lepers don't do that. neither do sharks or anything else. And if he comes to Christ, which I pray he does, I genuinely pray he does, as well as most of the other leaders of countries. And I do pray for him by name and his family, and for them to have good health, not no ill will or anything like that. I can see the smirk on your face. Not praying for an avalanche or anything like that. I genuinely pray out of
It comes
love
through in
and
the
for
face.
for God to work, and believe He bears the image of God, just as Christ came for all of us. I do believe that one of the concerns for the Black church is really staying solely Black, and I think this presidency will allow for an opening. At least my hope will be for an opening of the doors to invite in and become a more intentionally diverse community. I
That's
don't know
interesting.
any Black churches that have Black in their title. you
Right.
know, um, they just are. But I do believe that.
I mean, AME would
Um,
be like as close as you get to that, as far as I'm
well,
aware.
yeah, I would say that probably would be the yeah. I think AME would be probably the closest thing to, because that's it's got African in it, but even that doesn't
No, agree.
um,
Yeah.
dissuade anyone, because we're all African originally. So you should be able to get in on that. You might not believe it, depending on your white supremacy and whatnot, but you came out of
It's so
Africa
funny,
too.
man. It doesn't matter whether you're an evolutionist or a Christian, creation
Correct.
scientist.
You all got to
It's
say we
all
came out of
African.
it. It doesn't matter exactly. Sorry, you can say, "Oh, we're from the Middle East." Whatever. That's North Africa. Um, get a map. Fourth graders can show you. I hope that the church will seek to um, get back to a space of not, because he's president now, and I'm expecting a loosening of the reins as far as over the next 4 years. He has no need for the evangelical church or any other church.
Right.
Um,
We're now in the
and
predictions portion of the show.
so I do believe that there will be the letting go of the church. Um, and out of that, my hope is that there'll be a space for reconciliation
Within
between
the
the
church, you mean?
yes, yes, within the church.
Yeah.
I hope that, and
Wow.
I Black church is one where we invite everyone in. Like, if you're white,
Mhm.
Hispanic, whatever, and you come in, it is not a weird thing for us. You sit down, you enjoy, you worship, you leave. We never see you again. We still love you for the next 15 years. Like, it's your family.
When you come back, there will
Um,
be food.
Correct. Like, you're good. Show up for the funeral, the wedding, whatever. You come on in. We'll have you serve and volunteer. And it's a good church that I came out of that makes me smile, because we have a number of members of different backgrounds at this church, and people are always surprised to see the diversity. It is not as diverse as I would like,
Hmm.
but it is one where it's diverse. My hope is during the next 4 years that will become more of a norm, and that the church will focus on reaching the community and helping the hurting, and not lobbying for attention. And so that is my hope. My hope is also that the church will, or churches will, begin to share resources with one another, and not just
Hmm.
money, but manpower and people power, and realize that we have what we need as long as we listen to God and obey. So I'm I'm abundantly hopeful and encouraged. Yes, I had no bets on either president, either person winning. I'm not excited about Trump being the president, but I am excited to see what God's going to do with this church, and not the buildings, but the people. And so I'm looking forward to see, because of this presidency. I expect younger people to be more zealous. Just to be honest, be more on fire. We saw a number of years ago, but they became more political. I'm hoping that they will become more faithful and realize that this really is a God thing, not a I gotta control it with my vote thing. Yes, that's a part of living out your faith, is voting, but it's not the main thing. And so I'm I'm humbled. I'm I'm abundantly concerned about the country, but for the church, I am excited.
Mm.
And so, yeah, my plans are to love my neighbor well, love the stranger well, and to celebrate new life and to grieve the loss of loved ones and to celebrate those loved ones that know him well, and keep moving forward. Does that answer your question?
Most of it. I want to do a lightning round at the end.
Okay.
Just right off the top. But
Lightning round.
yeah.
Okay. I did
Just
not
things
know we
I'm
were doing
curious
that.
about. I didn't have it till like 5 seconds ago when it hit my brain pan.
What are you looking forward to or concerned about over the next
Yeah.
4 years? Or
So
I have no clue.
I'm going to out myself and say I did vote for Trump because I saw this election as being pretty binary in terms of our choices. And I couldn't support the policy that the Harris administration stood for. But I would, I was not able to vote for Trump back in 16. You and I talked about it back then. Because as much as the politics that he was espousing, there are things I could stand behind. He was untested. He was unproven. I was able to vote for him in 20 because he delivered on many of the things that, it's not even that he delivered. The things that he did do lined up enough with the concerns that I have as a citizen that I thought, okay, this is a better direction than the alternative. I don't know what's going to happen now. I feel you referenced leopards and sharks, right? Jesus didn't come to save leopards and sharks. He did come to save people. Right. Trump has professed to be a believer, and I can't read his heart. I can look at the fruit of the tree and say that fruit needs some serious pruning. If it in fact is a fruit tree.
Go ahead. That's a lot of salt coming out of that clean water then. Or out of that clean fountain.
No, big time. Big time. Does Jesus save sinners? No, that's the only thing he saves, right? Do sinners serve Jesus? That's the only kind of people that serve Jesus. Does a lack of humility undercut someone's actual salvation? No. But it does indicate the posture of someone's heart, whether they're open to hearing from God, open to following God, or whether they think that they are God. So where I am right now is I'm hopeful that our country will be stronger 4 years from now than it is right now. I'm also more cautious in my optimism than I would have been if he had won back in 2020. In 2020, I would have said, "Hey, he's on a trajectory. He's going to keep on rolling forward to the things we know." At this point, so much has happened. Even before today, he had already started changing his tune on abortion. He changed his tune on some foreign affairs issues. And that was all after he left the White House. And then, obviously J6 only happened after the election had already taken place.
Right.
And regardless of what you think happened on January 6th, it's going to be more than an asterisk in the history books when talking about the election of 2020. It can't not be. And there's so much here in the, I feel like I'm just blowing smoke at this point. Let me clear up my thoughts here a little bit.
Let me ask this question as just out of generosity. How do you handle the fact that in his 4 years, he shared over 30,000 untruths himself on Twitter? Like, I don't even know what he did with his staff or anyone else, but just volume of information that he sent out. Like, how do you handle that when we talk about fruit from a fruit tree?
I think
And
that he's doing openly what everyone else is doing privately. I don't see much distinction there between he and anyone else. Every other president has simply done it through their press secretary. That's just been it.
gotcha.
He's been open about it. You know this about me. I've read enough history that I'm well aware that today is not significantly worse than it was 50 years ago or 150 years ago when it comes to the way that politics is done. And if anything, the amount of lies shrunk for a period in our history over the past 50 years and has now reblossomed thanks to the proliferation of the internet. Well, you go back to politics 150 years ago, the abject lies that were the bald-faced lies that were told in order to win the election, in order to sway the voting public. And yes, I said that very intentionally, the voting public, because there's a whole other can of worms that we can dive into there. It was outrageous. Trump is simply doing it in the way that Trump, one of my daughters, has introduced into our family from the public parlance the bombastic side eye. And if she always says it bombastic. Oh, he just gave you a bombastic side eye. Well, that's what Trump's getting. That's what Trump has gotten. And man, still blowing smoke. Okay, here's my read. Trump was beloved by the left when they thought he was left. When he was in New York, being popular, making money, he was one of them. He was their boy. He came out and said, actually, I'm not that. And they fell over themselves in anger and started spreading malicious lies about him from the start. And that's politics, and that's the world we live in. He did a somewhat decent job as president in his first election, in his first round. But at this point, he doesn't have anything to lose. And in terms of anyone he's beholden to, I think he's always been primarily beholden to himself. I think he was more beholden to the Republican Party back from 16 to 20. I think he's a whole lot less beholden to them now, and I think that could be really problematic. I don't know what he's going to do. I think what's likely to happen is he's going to revert to who he actually was pre-16, pre-15 when he came down that elevator. I think in this election, in this administration, we're going to see what his true values actually are. And because of the fruit that has fallen off the tree, I think they're very self-serving, fundamentally at the end of the day.
And so
I think what he cares about.
You thought that was better than voting for the lady?
When I have someone who says, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and what they're telling me they're going to do seems to line up with my interests.
What is he said he was going to do? I'm just trying to understand.
Oh, I am strongly in favor of having lawful immigration. I am very open-hearted. You know this about me, very open-hearted. I want to invite people. I want guests in our country. We have a way for that to happen. That way needs to be followed and it needs to be fixed. And the way the immigration has been handled over the past number of administrations is a problem that needs to be solved. It needs to be addressed. And I don't think primarily by the presidency. I think Congress is at fault here. I think that, what I expect is that our economy is going to be better because I think that Trump's approach to finance is going to lead to a stronger economy, and rising tides lift all ships.
But didn't he spend more money than?
Well, that was going to be the lightning round, man.
Like, I'm just trying to understand, like, He wasn't.
Yeah, and I haven't looked at the numbers. I don't know what that graph looks like once COVID hit. I know that for the past since 9/11, the government's use of money has been stupid and
I'd say impressive,
inexcusable.
but
Inexcusable. Okay.
I hear you.
I like your impressiveness. I like the way that you, God bless, bless their heart. It's impressive.
That's impressive.
I don't buy the, I haven't seen evidence that Trump's trying to tamp down on dissenting opinions. I haven't seen evidence of the rhetoric that's painted him as some sort of oligarch or
You said you
autocrat.
haven't
I
seen
have
that?
not.
Huh?
No, I haven't. I've seen rhetoric. I've seen rhetoric that
Gotcha. You have seen the rhetoric, but you haven't seen
I have
anything
seen
personally.
rhetoric. I've seen rhetoric,
Gotcha.
and then I've seen him, not take steps that would in fact tighten people's freedoms. Not getting granular here, right? There are certainly areas where any law is going to tighten some freedoms while loosening others, right? So I'm not saying that's certainly out there to be discussed. But on the whole, when I look at the freedom that people have to choose where they go to school, where they go to church, where they exercise their freedoms, how they exercise their freedoms, I don't see it. To put it simply, when I think that Trump actually, because he cares most about himself and his comfort, actually takes a live and let live approach that is safer for me. I don't think Trump needs me to look like him. He just needs me to not bother him.
And it's not, you are concerned with the people who are around him versus the people who are around him in the first term?
I don't know who's around him. That is troubling to me because I don't know who's around him right now. A couple weeks back, I read through Heritage's. I didn't read through. Let me be clear. It was 900 some pages. I didn't read through it. I dropped into Chat GPT and I had Chat GPT walk through various summaries so I could ask questions about it. If you haven't done that, I do recommend it. Every self-interested group out there has an interest, and they all have their ways to get there. I don't put any stock in some sort of conspiratorial aspect to Project 2025. The Heritage Institute has been around for what, 50, 60 years, 30, 40 years at least. I think it's 50. I think the mid 70s is when the Heritage Foundation started. And what they wrote in the report sounds a lot like conservative values and conservative policy. And sure, there's lots of people who aren't going to agree with it or think it's good. They're not conservatives. And some of them are conservatives and they just have a different read on the policy. That's okay. Every group has that. I don't, the fact that that's out there doesn't mean that A, Trump is involved, that B, the people that were involved in writing it somehow have any kind of hooks or controls in the White House. B, that Trump has signed on to it. C, I did two B's, B1 and B2. That's the nature of influence. I think everyone's going to, once the turkey is set on the table, everyone's going to want to get their slice, and everyone's going to want the best slice, and everyone's going to be pushing and shoving to get their best slice.
I understand what you're saying. I just don't understand how you got around January 6th. I hear you. I'll be honest. I felt that there wasn't an option to vote for him just because of the things that he's done. Again, the things that he shared, it'd be different. I get it if someone else was spinning for him, and I understand. You and I both understand the goal of getting in. I think because he's not beholden to anyone, that to me is an abundance of concern. Again, I'm not worried about this.
Yeah, I
As I
get that.
told you, I'm not fleeing the country or anything. It is hard for me to hear him and look at how he justified white supremacists. It is hard for me to, again, reconcile the way he's talked about women. It is hard for me to, I've got a daughter and a wife, sister, and many others. I cannot I mean, as you know, I am not a Democrat. So it is
Mm-hmm.
not that I agree with the party or the things that they're doing. I just realized the Republicans, at least in my view, and I haven't seen his platform, didn't put much of an option in front of me. In light of, again, January 6th and his inability to accept both that he lost as well as that he led an insurrection. I get that he is significantly strong-willed or strong opinion, or you can say a number of other things about his age. I get that you could use all those things. I just know as a person who is looking for a leader, I'm looking for someone to care about the people they're leading. And I didn't see that in his response.
I completely agree with that. And I will say this. If I did believe that what happened on January 6th was in fact an insurrection and that he was leading it, I couldn't vote for him either.
Gotcha. Okay. And that's fine. And we can disagree on that. Like that's not a we're not gonna be friends over. It is just one of those things where for me, looking at the police officers, looking at what wasn't done
Sure.
from a military standpoint, it's like, yeah, that's too close to the line.
I
Um, I can't get with that.
I grant that. I
I
grant
get
that
it.
it was an absolute failure in leadership. It was an absolute, regardless of who else was involved, his leadership there was trying to think of the word that would be both accurate and strong enough.
Like I said, for me, that was the that and the expectation that whoever is my running mate has to be has to be my ride or die chick. And so
Right.
his
Right.
number two, I can't get with either. And even though I loved him prior to him falling in love with the new Republican Party, which I think it should change its name to. Um, um, we could have three parties. Um, I like people who know who they are, and even if we disagree, we can have I would like to have a conversation where we disagree, so that way I can hear where I'm wrong and be challenged, and I can wrestle with even where I am. But to see someone change so much once one has been tapped is, in my lane, in my world, you turned yourself into a joke. And I get it. It's a political thing. I get it. It's a power thing. And
That makes sense to me.
um, but for me to trust you as number two, um, that causes me great concern. Yeah. Okay. Lightning round. You said you wanted to do lightning round. You got a few minutes.
Okay. In the next 4 years, I didn't think of these questions. I should have. How much will our debt increase by?
Oh my goodness. There's some fun math on that one. It's impressive right now where it's almost it's at record levels.
Is it 13 trillion or is it more than 13 trillion?
It's more than 13 trillion. I'm going to encourage all of our listeners to go and look this up, because if I tell you, you will
It'll be different
shrug
by
it
the time
off.
you get there.
Well, no, but you'll also shrug it off. Like, this is the teacher in me. I can give you the answer, but I need you to work for this so that you learn it and go,
Okay,
oh my
plus
goodness,
or minus.
yourself.
This is my question. Plus or minus. Just give a number. It'll be up by X amount. Up or down?
Because of interest and whatnot. And if we go through a cycle of lowering taxes and increasing tariffs, which is what was promised, both of those things, increasing tariffs actually causes the economy to slow down, whereas decreasing taxes encourages it to speed up. The issue is if you decrease taxes on the wealthiest among us, they don't spend more on different items, so it actually does slow down too. It doesn't speed up. You need,
from a consumer point of view, they don't, but from a production side, they do.
From a corporate side, they do.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to make clear. If it is, again, billionaires and trillionaires, and I think we might get one in the next 4 years, that are getting the biggest tax cut, then the larger money will stay up there. It will find places to hide and be. Increase. I I'm going to assume some other crazy thing like COVID 2.0 or 15 hurricanes. I have no clue. But we've had an impressive lifetime so far, so why not? I'm I'm gonna I'm gonna go for a good 6 trillion.
Good 6 trillion increase. Okay.
Yes, yes. So not quite half. Um, but on top of that, that would potentially, I will put this one out because Nassim Taleb has a really good a couple articles on it. That would cause a debt issue so amazing
Mhm.
that America would probably desire to act in ways it hasn't in the past. Yeah.
Okay. I was going with 7 to 8 trillion
I went
increase
below you.
myself. Yeah,
It,
that's
it,
okay.
I don't
I'm hoping
think
you're right.
I don't I don't think if we stacked on 6 trillion in the next 4 years, I really don't think debtors would be okay with that.
I completely agree. And what not okay with that actually looks like in terms of policy and relationship, I don't have any idea.
As a JV economist, I can tell you that would mean a sinking US dollar and a skyrocketing cost on hard assets. And that even includes water, which would a liquid asset, but it's still hard. That would change people's way of life significantly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this obviously is the slowest lightning round in history.
Yep.
Second question. Foreign entanglements. Where do you see us going? Do you think that there, this is the question. Do you think that there will be less geopolitical unrest that we're involved with as a country in the next 4 years than there were in the previous four?
That's a tough question. And I say that because I think a lot of it has nothing to do with who's in office.
Mm-hmm.
We have a shortage of subs and carriers and a whole bunch of other stuff that we just like. We have some new toys with Lockheed Martin that are impressive, and um, uh, and the platforms and ways in which war will take place in the future will be very different.
Oh, it's going to be
I mean,
horrendous.
just yeah, exactly, just
Horrendous.
vastly different. And so I really do not know. I would assume yes. If we stack on debt in the US and things get wobbly around the world and we catch a cold and everyone else catches the flu, I think it could be really hard not to stay out of messy places just for our own interest. And we could label it, peacekeeping or whatever. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think it's China, Iran, Russia, or a yet unnamed fourth player?
I sadly believe it'll probably be on our own grounds. And I have no clue. Yeah.
My prediction is more entanglement, more that I'll say, feel that we are forced to be involved in.
Mm.
And that's not saying that we weren't already involved in it through espionage and through
Yeah.
economic entanglement and blah, blah, blah. But the way the world is right now, I think that we're at such a point in the setup of the board, if you will, that an action has to take place. I don't think that there's a revving down from the point that we are without there being actual conflict. So yeah, I think in the next 4 years we're looking at actual hot conflict.
Correct. And I mean, I'll be honest, I really think that we Americans, not military people, but Americans, have a let me say this properly. I don't even care anymore. An idolatrous view of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it leads to a presumption of power that in at least in the Ukrainian style of war makes it clear your size can be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I read a book which I will not mention now, but it just talks about the power out of our past of the sniper from not too long
Yeah.
ago, and just how much fear came out of one person.
Yeah.
And how so much of, at least in the DMV, changed from a security standpoint, and pick up and drop off for kids and church and grocery shopping, and so much of our life. And that was two people. And so
Yep.
I can't imagine if there are other individuals out there that are not fans of America, how our future could look differently.
Okay. I want to ask two more questions here, but the one I know I want to ask has nothing to do with anything.
Okay.
Will the robo taxi be delivered by 2027?
No, not even 2037.
That makes me sad inside
That
because I
fool
really
hasn't told
want
the
one.
truth once. God bless him. And that really is a southern thing. God bless him. Only, and this is now that we're in the land of Trump, only in a place of our, only in America could this person exist and build stuff super bright and at the same time miss every mark under the sun. I love some of the things that, and I'm humbled by some of the things he does. And at the same time, if you're 20 years late, like, come on. He's been touting that since the company first began. And he made it seem as though people would be buying their cars and their cars would be used as a robo taxi, which I thought was a pretty cool idea. And now it's, yeah, no, I just need y'all to keep doing it and let me make some more money and then I can roll out my own company and be happy.
Okay, final for the lightning round. Where will A&D be in 4 years?
Wow.
Will we be dominating the podcast verse?
Wow, in 4 years. Wow. In 4 years, Goldilocks and the Three Hairs will have been written.
Mm-hmm.
In 4 years, David will be 14. In 4 years, Anchored and Devoted will be a radio show.
I love it. I'm going to say a hearty amen to that.
Yeah,
that's my answer to that question.
It'll be a national radio show. It will not be a podcast. It'll be a radio show.
Like on Sirius or actual broadcast?
Probably both.
Okay.
I don't think that I haven't seen any conversation where, you can have two brothers, different worlds come together, love Christ, keep it real, be honest. And I mean, I'm open to have conversations with strangers who want to call in and talk, but we don't have that platform. I think if we did, so people can lobby for it, please, wherever, I think it would be even more interesting. I think of a number of other things that would be unique as far as our interactions. But I also think that in these coming seasons, there's a lot to talk about from a fear versus faith, and really what does that look like in the midst of all of this? Not just a fawning or freezing or pretending or whatever, but no, Black church lean in, white church, what are you doing? That kind of stuff. And once all the political stuff is now starting to move away and all the faith in Trump is starting to change, and so okay, now what do we do? We got to actually get back to the gospel and get back to living it out.
I wasn't going to ask this, but I will. Do you think that 4 years from now, the Republican Party, the conservative Republican Party, will reemerge from hibernation? Or do you think that we're in a totally different world now?
Wow. I know what I would like to happen. I don't know.
I do too.
I don't know if that's reasonable. Wow. My prayer is that both parties would get back to their roots. Not all of their roots, because Democrats were big on slavery, so not big on that one. I would like to see the Republican Party, if we're going to stick with the two-party system, I would like to see it get back to it being clear that this is what you're voting for, not against, but for.
Right.
And then with the Democratic Party, this is what you're voting for. Not the parties being focused on spin or presentation, but just platform. This is it.
Yeah.
And then, here's the person, and this is how we plan on doing it today. It's sad that I had, we watched the two candidates running for governor in Maryland do a debate that was 45 minutes. And in that debate, I saw more maturity and clarity and understanding, got more understanding from it than I did from anything this whole season. I was just like, this is what should have happened for both the vice president, presidential, even just them speaking. I was just like, man, if things were this clear, and it was Hogan versus Alsabrook, And it was just nice. There was no screaming, yelling. They agreed on stuff. They disagreed on stuff. They even beat up on each other. And I was like, that's a good debate. But there was no, there were no distractions. It was just a conversation between two opposing individuals.
It's probably a good place to leave this with this thought. National politics are going to continue to exist, but every time you take a step down further away from Washington, you get to things that matter a whole lot more. By the time you're in your community, that's where it matters the most, and that's where you have the most influence. So regardless of whether you're putting your house on the market today or you feel like you just fell into hog heaven, please stop worshiping idols. This is Anchored and Devoted. We'll talk to you soon.